The shuttle was falling and Jake Morrison knew he was going to die. His hands gripped the controls as red warning lights flashed all around him and alarms screamed in his ears. But nothing he did made any difference. The planet below had grabbed his ship like a giant invisible hand and was pulling him down through thick amber clouds. This was supposed to be simple. Survey the planet and go home. Nobody told him about the massive energy field that would drag his shuttle from orbit like it weighed. Nothing. Metal screamed as the ship hit the atmosphere. Trees rushed up to meet him. Then everything went black. When Jake opened his eyes, he thought maybe he had died and gone to heaven, because the face looking down at him belonged an ancient fairy, Tails. She had violet eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Her hair was pure silver and it moved like it had starlight trapped inside it. Pointed ears poked out from beneath those flowing locks. Her skin had an almost transparent quality that made her look unreal. She was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Jake had ever seen. The woman spoke and somehow Jake understood her perfectly, even though her accent sounded impossibly ancient. You live human. The fates have smiled upon you today. Jake tried to sit up and immediately wished he had not. Pain shot through his ribs like fire. He gasped and fell back. Who are you? What are you? My name is Lyra Lai of House Silverwind. You have crashed into the heart of a war that has lasted 3,000 years. Human. She stepped back and Jake noticed she wore armor that looked like it was made from crystallized moonlight. The plates fit her body perfectly and were clearly damaged from many battles. A sword hung at her side and it hummed with energy that Jake could actually feel from several feet away. A massive shadow passed overhead, and Jake felt his heart stop. The creature that landed beside them was as big as a fighter. Jetted scales shifted through colors like oil on water. Midnight blue became, deep purple became silver, became black eyes like molten gold stared at Jake with clear intelligence that was deeply unsettling. The woman named Lyra Lai placed one hand on the massive creature and spoke softly. Peace Nethys. He is not our enemy. The dragon made a sound deep in its chest that Jake felt in his bones. Then impossibly it spoke directly into his mind. The human carries the scent of the void between stars. He is very far from home. Jake stared in shock. Did that dragon just talk inside my head? Ship, Jake started to say, is destroyed beyond any repair you could manage. Lyra Lai interrupted him, but her voice was not unkind. I sensed your dissent and came to investigate. You speak English. How is that possible? When you have lived as long as I have, you learn many languages. Yours was brought to this world decades ago by others who came from the stars. Lyra Lai paused and her expression turned dark. They did not survive long. The Dominion made sure of that. Jake felt ice run through his veins. The Dominion what? Is that the force that seeks to destroy all free peoples of this world? They are led by the Shadowborn, who are corrupted elves that traded their souls for dark power. Lyra Lai's hand moved to her sword. They hunt me and they hunt everyone who resists. Their rule now human, they will hunt you as well. As if her words had summoned them, the forest exploded with light beams of red energy cut through the trees and set ancient bark on fire. Dark shapes moved between the flames, tall, angular figures in black. Armor, can you move? Lyra Lai asked urgently. Jake forced himself to stand. His body screamed in protest, but adrenaline helped him ignore it. Fast enough. Then hold on tight. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Lyra Lai grabbed him around the waist. Nethys lowered his massive body, and in one smooth motion she leapt onto the dragon and pulled Jake up behind her. Fly, old friend, show them why they fear the last Silverwind rider. Nethys launched into the sky with a roar that shook the entire forest. Behind them, the dark soldiers fired their weapons, but the shots went wide as dragon and riders disappeared into the storm clouds above. Jake wrapped his arms tight around Lyra Lai. His face pressed against her back. As wind screamed past them, he could feel her heart. Beating fast beneath the armor, could smell something like flowers and lightning in her hair. They flew through turbulent skies with purple lightning crackling all around them. Nethys moved between the storm clouds with grace that should have been impossible for something so large. Every banking turn made Jake's injured ribs scream, but he did not dare loosen his grip. Below them, the landscape changed from burning forests to crystal mountains that jutted up like the teeth of some sleeping giant. Jake had trained for first contact scenarios. He had studied alien cultures and learned survival techniques, but nothing in his training had prepared him for riding a telepathic dragon through an alien storm while being chased by dark elf soldiers. This was beyond anything Earth's exploratory corps had imagined. Lyra Lay turned her head slightly and shouted over the wind, "You are either very lucky or very cursed human. I have not decided which yet." Jake would have laughed if he could breathe properly. Maybe. Both. She did laugh at that, a sound like music that somehow cut through the howling wind. Perhaps you humans are not so different from my people after all. They flew for what felt like hours. Jake's arms ached from holding on and his body throbbed with pain, but he did not complain. Below them, he caught glimpses of an alien world that was both beautiful and dangerous. Forests that glowed with bioluminescent life. Rivers that ran colors he had no names for. Ruins of ancient cities that spoke of civilizations long dead. Finally, as 3 suns began to set in a cascade of orange and violet, Nethys descended toward a hidden valley. Jake saw towers of white stone wrapped in glowing vine structures that blended perfectly with the natural rock around them. Looked like something from a dream, beautiful and sad at the same time. The Whisper Veil, Lyra Lay said as they landed in an overgrown courtyard. What remains of the last sanctuary of my order. Jake slid from Nethys and his legs nearly gave out. The adrenaline was wearing off and every injury made itself known with sharp insistence. Lyra Lay caught him with surprising strength for someone so slender. "Come, you need medical treatment, and we need to talk about what happens next." She guided him into one of the towers, while Nethys settled outside like a massive scaly guardian. Inside the tower was surprisingly warm, and lived-in salvaged technology sat beside ancient artifacts, creating a strange mix of science and magic. Lyra Lay directed Jake to a bench and retrieved a case of medical supplies. Many of the items looked disturbingly organic and alive. "This will hurt," she warned as she opened a container of glowing salve. She was not lying. Jake hissed through clenched teeth as the substance burned his skin. Almost immediately, he felt his broken ribs beginning to knit back together. The pain faded to a dull ache. "What is that stuff?" "Dragon's mercy, made from Nethys himself, freely given. It speeds healing far beyond your natural ability." Lyra Lay worked with practiced efficiency. Her touch was gentle despite her obvious warrior training. "You are fortunate. Most humans who crash on this world do not survive the landing. Even fewer survive the Dominion patrols afterward. You said others came here. Other humans. What happened?" To them, Lyra Lay's hand stilled for a moment. Her expression became distant and sad. 63 years ago, a ship like yours fell from the sky. Inside were 12 humans who called themselves explorers and scientists. I was younger then, and less cautious about who I trusted. I brought them here to this sanctuary and tried to protect them. She paused and Jake saw old pain in her violet eyes. The Dominion found them anyway. They wanted your people's knowledge of the stars and your technology. When the humans refused to serve the Dominion, Lyra Lay did not finish, but she did not need to. Jake understood what had happened. "I am sorry. So am too. Swore after that day I would never let it happen again." She met his eyes directly. "That is why you cannot stay here, Jake. Morrison, when your people realize you are missing, they will come looking for you. The Dominion will be waiting to capture them. Just like before." Jake shook his head slowly. "My ship was on a solo survey mission in an unmapped sector. They will not even start looking for me for 2 weeks then." He looked around the tower at the mix of technology and ancient artifacts. By then it might be too late anyway. Lyra Lay finished bandaging his wounds and sat back on her heels. "Why are you alone? You said this was a sanctuary for your order, whereas everyone else was a sanctuary." Lyra Lay corrected quietly. "I am the last one left. The Shadowborn have spent decades hunting down everyone who could bond with dragons. They fear us because we represent the old ways and the balance between nature and civilization. 3,000 years of tradition ended in a single generation. But you survived. I ran and I hid, and I watched my brothers and sisters fall one by one." Bitterness crept into her voice. "Some call me a coward. Others call me wise. I simply call myself alone. Not alone. Nethys's voice rumbled through both their minds. Never alone, little star. Despite everything, Lirelai smiled. It transformed her face from beautiful to radiant. No, not completely alone. She looked back at Jake, with an expression he could not quite read. Your presence here complicates everything human. The Shadowborn mages will have sensed your crash by now. They will send hunters and possibly their princess herself. Princess, their leader. Once she was Morgana, Starweaver, and she was the greatest healer my people ever produced. Now she is something else entirely. Something that chose power over mercy. Lirelai stood and moved to a window overlooking the valley. She wants me dead because I refused to kneel before. Her tyranny, she will want you captured because humans represent a threat she does not understand. Jake joined her at the window. Below them, Nethys had curled into a defensive position. The next morning, Jake woke to find sunlight streaming through tall windows. His body ached less than it should have thanks to the dragon's mercy that Lirelai had applied to his wounds. He could hear sounds coming from below and the smell of something. Cooking drifted up to the small room where he had slept. When Jake made his way down the spiral stairs, he found Lirelai preparing breakfast over a device that looked like a combination of campfire and alien technology. She had removed her armor and wore simple clothing that somehow made her look even more otherworldly. Her silver hair was tied back and she moved with fluid grace as she worked. You are awake, good. We have much to discuss today. She handed him a plate of food that looked strange but smelled amazing. Jake sat and took a cautious bite. The flavors exploded on his tongue in ways Earth food never had. This is incredible. What is it? Crystal fruit and ember bread. Common food among my people. Well, among my people before the Dominion destroyed. Most of our settlements. Lirelai sat across from him with her own plate. Tell me about your world, Jake Morrison, about Earth and your people. Jake spent the next hour describing humanity. He told her about Earth's blue oceans and green forests, about cities that touched the sky and ships that sailed between stars. He explained how humans had learned to work together after centuries of conflict, how they had formed the exploratory corps to seek out new worlds and new civilizations. Lirelai listened with intense focus, her violet eyes never leaving his face. Your people sound both very young and very old at the same time, young in the stars, but old in wisdom, hard-earned through suffering. That is a good combination, human. Now let me tell you about my world. I spoke of Varenthia as it had been 3,000 years ago, a planet where elves and dragons lived in harmony, where magic and nature were one and the same, where great cities of living crystal grew from the mountains themselves. The dragon-bonded were the guardians of this balance, elves who formed lifetime partnerships with dragons. Together they maintained peace and protected the innocent, but peace never lasts forever. 500 years ago, a brilliant healer named Morgana Starweaver discovered ancient texts. These texts spoke of power beyond imagination, power that could extend life indefinitely, power that could reshape reality itself. The cost was merely one's soul and compassion. Morgana believed she could use this dark power for good. She was wrong. The darkness consumed her slowly over decades. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was too late. Morgana had gathered followers and created the Shadowborn Dominion. They swept across Varenthia like a plague. Any who resisted were destroyed. Any who served were corrupted. The dragon-bonded fought back, but we were too few and too scattered. One by one, my brothers and sisters. Lirelai's voice grew soft with old pain. I watched my family die, my teachers and my students, my friends, and my bonded kin. Everyone I loved was taken from me. So I ran, and I have been running ever since. Jake reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. She looked startled by the gesture but did not pull away. You are not running anymore, you are surviving, and that takes its own kind of courage. Lirelai met his eyes and something passed between them. Some understanding that needed no words. Thank you. Jake Morrison, you are kind for a human who knows nothing of our ways. I know enough to recognize strength when I see it. After breakfast, Lirelai took Jake on a tour of the Whisper Vale. She showed him rooms filled with ancient books and scrolls archives that contained the entire history of the dragon-bonded workshops. where weapons and armor had once been forged training grounds where warriors had practiced for centuries. Everything was covered in dust and vines now, a monument to a dead civilization. This was a school once, Lyreley explained as they walked through a great hall. Young elves would come here to learn the ways of dragon bonding. It took years of training before one could even attempt to connect with a dragon's mind. Most never succeeded. Those who did became something greater than either elf or dragon alone. Jake looked at the faded murals on the walls. They showed elves and dragons flying together, fighting together, living in perfect harmony. How did you bond with Nethys? I was young, barely 50 years old. Relly smiled at the memory. I found him injured in the mountains. A rock slide had broken his wing and he could not fly. Any sensible elf would have run. Dragons are dangerous when wounded, but I could feel his pain and his fear. So I stayed and I helped him heal. It took months. During that time, we talked mind to mind. We learned each other's hearts. When his wing finally healed, he asked if I would fly with him. I said yes. We have been together for 267 years now. She led Jake outside to where Nethys dozed in the morning sun. The great dragon opened one golden eye as they approached. The human wishes to know our story. Nethys's voice rumbled in their minds. You always were sentimental, little star. I am not sentimental. I am merely answering his questions. You like him. That much is clear, even to these old eyes. Lyreley's cheeks colored slightly. Hush, you overgrown lizard. Nethys made a sound that might have been laughter. Jake found himself grinning despite the strangeness of the situation. Can I touch him? He is not a pet? Human. Nethys replied with amusement in his mental voice, but yes, you may, if you wish to feel what true power is like. Jake stepped forward slowly. He reached out and placed his palm against Nethys's scales. They were warm and incredibly smooth. Like touching liquid, metal energy thrummed beneath the surface. Ancient and vast and completely alien, it was humbling and terrifying and wonderful all at once. Jake pulled his hand back. Thank you. You are welcome, small human. You have a good heart. I can taste it in your thoughts. You care for my bonded one already. Jake glanced at Lyreley, who was studying a flower growing between the stones. Yeah, I guess I do. The rest of the day was spent learning. Lyreley showed Jake how to move quietly through the alien forest, how to read signs of danger in the wind and the behavior of native creatures, how to identify plants that were safe to eat and those that were deadly poison. She also began teaching him the basics of combat. Your human fighting style is interesting, she said as she watched him demonstrate what he knew, efficient and practical, but lacking in flow. You fight like you're made of stone. Elves fight like water. We adapt and move with our opponent. Here, let me show you. She attacked him slowly at first. Her movements were graceful and impossible to predict. Every time Jake thought he knew where she would strike, she went somewhere else. It was like fighting a ghost after an hour. Jake was exhausted and covered in sweat. Lyreley barely looked winded. You learn quickly, that is good. You will need every advantage when the Dominion comes, and they will come. Jake wiped sweat from his face. How long do we have? Days, perhaps. Maybe a week. If we are fortunate. Morgana will want to investigate your crash personally. She cannot resist a mystery, and you are definitely a mystery. What will we do when they arrive? We will fight. Lyreley's expression hardened, and if we cannot win, we will flee. That is how I have survived this long. Choose your battles and never fight when the odds are impossible. That sounds lonely. It is. Lyreley looked away, but it is also. Smart dead heroes accomplish nothing. Living survivors can fight another day. Over the following days, Jake and Lyreley fell into a routine. They trained every morning as the suns rose. They explored the ruins during the day. They talked late into the night. Jake learned more about elven culture and history. Lyreley learned about human technology and philosophy. They discovered they had more in common than either expected. Both came from warrior traditions that valued honor and duty. Both had lost people they cared about. Both were far from home in different ways. Jake began to notice things about Lyreley. The way her eyes brightened when she laughed, how she hummed ancient songs while cleaning her weapons, the careful way she avoided touching him except during training, the loneliness that surrounded her like a cloak even when she smiled. He also noticed that she watched him when she thought he was not looking, her gaze lingering on his face with an expression he could not quite read. On the 5th night they sat on the tower balcony watching Varenthia's 3 moons rise. The first was blue and the second was silver and the third was gold. Together they painted the valley in colors that took Jake's breath away. "This is beautiful. Your world is beautiful," Jake said softly. It was once Lirelei replied before the Dominion. It was paradise. Now it is a graveyard with a few living souls scattered among the tombs. It does not have to stay that way. You could fight back. Really fight back. Not just survive. But push forward, Jake. Turn to face her. You are not alone anymore. Lirelei, I am here. And when my people come, they will help. We do not abandon our own, and we do not ignore tyranny. You have so much faith in your people. What if they decide this is not their fight? What if they leave you here and forget about Varenthia? Then I stay anyway. Jake said without hesitation. I stay and I fight beside you for as long as it takes. Lirelei stared at him. Why, you barely know me. You have been here less than a week. Why would you throw away your life for a stranger on an alien world? Because it is the right thing to do. Jake met her gaze steadily. And because you are not a stranger anymore. You are my friend. Maybe more than that, if I am being honest. The air between them seemed to thicken. Lirelei opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her eyes were wide and vulnerable in a way Jake had never seen before. Before either could speak, Nethys's voice crashed through their minds with urgent alarm. They come. Multiple signatures approaching. Fast Shadowborn war drakes with riders. The moment shattered, Lirelei was on her feet instantly, her warrior mask slamming back into place. How many? 6? Perhaps more. Jake grabbed the rifle that Lirelei had given him 2 days ago. It was salvaged from the previous human expedition, and still worked perfectly. His hands moved on instinct as he checked the charge and prepared for combat. Lirelei strapped on her armor, with practiced speed. The crystalline plates seemed to glow brighter as her adrenaline rose. Her sword hummed at her hip, eager for battle. Stay close to me, she commanded as they ran outside. When we take flight, do exactly as I say, without hesitation. Your life depends on it. Jake nodded and followed her to where Nethys waited. The great dragon was already in combat stance. His scales had shifted to darker colors that would help him blend with the night sky. His golden eyes scanned the horizon with fierce intensity. I count 6 war drakes, all carrying riders in Dominion armor. Nethys reported. They approach from the east in attack formation. Can we outrun them? Lirelei asked as she pulled Jake onto the dragon's back. We can try, but they have the advantage of numbers. If they split up to flank us, we will be in danger. Then we fight. Lirelei's voice was cold and determined. Show them that the last Silverwind rider still has teeth. Nethys launched into the air with a powerful thrust of his wings. Jake wrapped his arms around Lirelei's waist and held on tight. The ground dropped away beneath them, and suddenly they were soaring into the darkening sky. The enemy appeared moments later, 6 dark shapes that moved like shadows given form. The war drakes were twisted, versions of Nethys. Their scales were mottled black and sickly green. Their eyes burned with unnatural red fire. They moved with jerky, aggressive motions that spoke of corruption and pain. Upon their backs sat riders in black armor. Each one carried weapons that crackled with dark energy. Here they come. Hold on, Lirelei shouted. The first war drake dove at them with its rider, leveling a lance that spat purple lightning. Nethys rolled sideways with impossible grace. Jake felt his stomach lurch as the world spun. He aimed his rifle and fired. The energy bolt struck the enemy drake's wing membrane. The creature shrieked in pain but did not fall. These are elite soldiers. Lirelei called back to him. Battle hardened and enhanced with dark magic. We cannot afford to make mistakes. 2 more war drakes attacked from different angles. Their riders fired beams of crimson energy that sizzled through the air. Nethys wove between the attacks with the skill of centuries of experience. His wings beat with powerful rhythm. As he gained altitude, Jake fired again and again, some shots hit and some missed. The enemy drakes were fast and their riders knew how to use evasive maneuvers. Lyralay's sword blazed to life. Silver fire erupted along the blade, casting strange shadows across the sky. When one war drake came too close, she struck out. The blade cut through dark scales like they were paper. The enemy drake roared and fell back, trailing black smoke. But there were still 5 more, and they were learning. The riders began to coordinate their attacks. 3 would strike from different directions while 2 hung back to cut off escape routes. It was a classic hunting pattern, and it was working. Nethys could not dodge everything. A blast of dark energy caught his left wing. The dragon bellowed in pain and they dropped 50 feet before he recovered. Lyralee Jake shouted, "Are you all right?" "I am fine," she replied through gritted teeth. "But Nethys is hurt. We need to end this quickly." She raised her free hand and began to chant. Words in an ancient language spilled from her lips. The air around them began to shimmer with power. Jake felt the hairs on his arms stand up as energy gathered. One of the enemy riders recognized what she was doing. He shouted something to the others in a harsh, guttural tongue. All 5 remaining war drakes dove at them at once. Now Nethys Lyralee screamed. The dragon tucked his wings and dropped into a spinning dive. The enemy followed, thinking they had the advantage. At the last possible second, Nethys spread, his wings wide and pulled up hard. 3 of the pursuing war drakes could not match the maneuver. They collided with each other in a tangle of wings and scales and armored bodies. The sound of the impact echoed across the valley. 2 drakes fell from the sky, their riders screaming as they plummeted toward the ground far below. The 3rd managed to recover, but its wing was broken. It limped away from the battle, trailing blood. That left 2 enemies, but these 2 were clearly the most skilled. They spread out to opposite sides, making it impossible to watch both at once. Their riders moved with perfect synchronization. One would attack while the other waited for an opening. Then they would switch. It was a deadly dance, and Lyralee was tiring. Jake could feel her breathing hard against his chest, could see the way her sword arm trembled slightly. Nethys was wounded and struggling. They could not keep this up much longer. Jake made a decision. On the next pass, when the drake on the left attacks, I am going to shoot its rider. "Not the drake, the rider. You sure about that, human?" Nethys asked. "Your weapon may not pierce Dominion armor. It is worth trying, better than slowly losing this fight." Lyralee said nothing, but Jake felt her nod. The enemy made their move. The war drake on the left dove and fast, its rider raised a spear of crackling dark energy. Jake waited until he could see the individual plates of the rider's armor. Then he fired 3 rapid shots. The first struck the rider's shoulder. The second hit center mass. The third caught the rider in the gap between helmet and chest plate. The Shadowborn warrior jerked backward, lost his grip on his drake, and tumbled off into empty air. His scream faded as he fell. The riderless war drake broke off the attack, confused and directionless. That left 1 enemy. But this final rider was clearly the most dangerous. She wore more ornate armor than the others. Her war drake was larger and moved with greater intelligence. When she raised her hand, the air itself seemed to darken. Jake felt cold terror grip his heart. "That is a shadow mage." Lyralee's voice was tight with fear. "Get ready for anything." The enemy mage made a complex gesture. Invisible chains wrapped around Nethys. The dragon roared in agony as dark magic constricted his body. They began to fall, spinning out of control toward the ground. Lyralee's sword blazed brighter than Jake had ever seen. She began chanting again, her voice rising above the wind, and Nethys's roars of pain. Silver fire spread from her blade. It flowed over Nethys like liquid starlight. Where the fire touched the invisible chains, they shattered. Nethys caught himself barely 20 feet from the rocky ground. His wings beat hard as he climbed back into the sky. Now he was angry. The great dragon opened his jaws and breathed. Silver flame erupted from his mouth, a torrent of fire that turned night into day. The enemy war drake tried to dodge but was too slow. The flames caught its left side. It screamed and fled, trailing smoke and the smell of burnt scales. But the shadow mage did not flee. She simply smiled, a cold, terrible smile that promised death. The mage raised both hands. Dark energy gathered between her palms. It formed into a spear of absolute blackness, a weapon that seemed to drink. In light itself, Jake recognized the gesture. She was preparing a killing blow. Lyrelay saw it too. "Nethys, we need to." The shadow spear flew. It moved faster than thought. Faster than anything Jake had ever seen. Nethys tried to dodge, but the spear curved in. Mid-air, it struck the dragon in his right shoulder. Nethys screamed, a sound of pure agony that Jake felt in his very soul. They fell. The ground rushed up impossibly fast. Jake held on to Lyrelay as tight as he could. At the last second, Nethys twisted his body, taking the impact with his bulk instead of letting his riders be crushed. They crashed into the forest. Trees exploded around them. Jake was thrown clear. He rolled through undergrowth and slammed into a boulder. Pain exploded through his body. For several seconds, he could not move or breathe. When his vision cleared, he saw Lyrelay struggling to her feet. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead. She stumbled toward Nethys. The dragon lay still. The shadow spear jutted from his shoulder like some horrible monument. "Run." Little Star Nethys's mental voice was weak. "Run while you still can." Never. Lyrelay fell to her knees beside him. Her hands grasped the spear. "I will not lose you. Not you. Not ever." The shadow mage descended on her. Wardrake. She landed gracefully in the middle of the destruction. Up close, Jake could see she was beautiful in a terrible way. Her skin was pale as death. Her eyes held no warmth. She radiated power and cruelty in equal measure. Lyrelay Silverwind. The mage's voice was like silk over steel. "You could have served at my side. You could have had power beyond measure. Instead, you chose this futility and a human pet." Jake tried to stand, but his body would not obey. He watched helplessly as the mage approached. "Lyrelay, your fight is with me." Lyrelay's sword blazed. "Leave them alone." "Them?" The mage laughed. "Oh, how sweet. You care for the dragon and the human both. That makes this so much easier. When I kill them, you will finally break. And when you break, you will join us. Or you will die. Either outcome pleases me." Raised her hand, dark energy gathering again. Jake finally managed to get to his feet. His rifle was gone, lost somewhere in the crash, but he still had his combat knife. It was a pathetic weapon against a magic-wielding dark elf, but it was all he had. He started running toward the mage. Lyrelay saw him and her eyes went wide with horror. "No, Jake, run. Get away from here." But Jake did not run. He could not run. Not while she was in danger. The shadow mage noticed him. She turned slightly, her expression one of amused contempt. "How noble. The human wishes to die for you. Very well. I shall grant his wish." Dark energy lanced toward Jake. He tried to dodge but knew he was too slow. This was it. This was how he died. On an alien world, fighting an enemy he barely understood. For a woman he had known less than 2 weeks. But somehow that felt right. Then silver fire erupted between them. Lyrelay stood with her sword raised high, her entire body glowing with power. 3 days passed after the battle. Jake and Lyrelay worked together to repair the damage to the Whisper Veil. Nethys healed quickly thanks to his dragon resilience, but he still moved carefully. The wound from the shadow spear had been deep and dark. Magic left scars that took time to fade. Jake noticed that something had changed between him and Lyrelay since their confessions. She no longer avoided his touch. In fact, she seemed to seek it out. Their hands would brush as they worked. She would sit close to him during meals. At night, she would find reasons to linger near him before they went to their separate rooms. But there was also fear in her eyes, a hesitation that Jake understood all too well. She had lost everyone she loved. Opening her heart again meant risking that pain once more. On the 4th morning, Jake woke early and found Lyrelay already awake. She stood on the tower balcony, watching the triple sunrise. Her silver hair moved in the gentle breeze. She looked so beautiful it made his chest ache. "Good morning," Jake said softly as he joined her. She turned and smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed her face. "Good morning, Jake Morrison. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." He moved to stand beside her, their shoulders touching. What? About you? I did not sleep much. I have been thinking. About what? About us. About what comes next. Lyra Lay turned to face him fully. The Shadow Mage was right. I have bonded with you. Not in the way I bonded with Nethys, but in a different way. A deeper way, perhaps. Jake felt his heart beat faster. What does that mean exactly for your people? I mean, when elves bond with someone, it is forever. Our souls become entwined. Even death cannot truly separate us. Lyra Lay's expression was serious. It is not something we do lightly, and once done, it cannot be undone. That sounds intense. It is, and it terrifies me. She looked away. You are human, Jake. You will age while I remain young. In 50 years, you will be old and I will look exactly as I do now. In 80 years, you will die, and I will live on for centuries alone. Can you understand how that frightens me? Jake took her hands in his. I understand, but Lyra Lay, every moment we have is precious. Whether it is 50 years or 500, I would rather have a short time with you than a long life without you, but I will watch you fade. Watch you grow weak. She was crying now. I will hold you as you die. And then I will be alone again. For centuries. Maybe forever. Then those centuries will be filled with beautiful memories. Jake wiped her tears away. Gently, memories of laughter and love and adventures we shared. Is that not better than spending those centuries alone? Because you were too afraid to try. You make it sound so simple, because it is simple. Jake smiled. I love you and you love me. Everything else we can figure out together. Lyra Lee laughed through her tears. You are impossibly optimistic for someone who crashed on a hostile alien world. I prefer to think of it as hopeful. Jake pulled her close. And hope is what you need right now. What this world needs. You have been fighting alone for so long. Let me fight beside you. Let me be your partner. Your equal. Your love. She buried her face against his chest, her arms wrapped tight around him. I am so afraid of losing you. Then do not lose me. Hold on to me. Let me hold on to you. They stood like that for a long time. The three suns rising higher in the sky. Below them, Nethys watched with approval in his golden eyes. Finally, Lyra Lay pulled back just enough to look up at Jake. There is something you should know. In my culture, when two people bond, there is a ceremony. It is called the joining of hearts. What does it involve? We stand before witnesses and pledge ourselves to each other. We exchange tokens that represent our commitment. And then she hesitated, we merge our life energies. It is intimate and sacred and forever binding. Jake felt his pulse quicken. That sounds like marriage. Your marriage traditions and ours are similar. Yes, Lyra Lay searched his face. But ours goes deeper, much deeper. Once joined, our emotions will always be connected. I will feel your joy and your pain. You will feel mine. We will never truly be apart. Even when distance separates us. I want that, Jake said without hesitation. I want all of it. You are certain. More certain than I have ever been about anything. Jake cupped her face gently. Lyra Lay. I know we have only known each other for a short time, but in that time you have become everything to me. You are brave and strong and beautiful. You make me want to be better. And I cannot imagine my future without you in it, so yes. I am certain. Lyra Lay's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were happy tears. Then I accept. I will bond with you, Jake Morrison. I will join my heart to yours. For however long we have, we will face it together. They kissed, then not desperate like before, but tender and full of promise. When they finally parted, both were smiling. So when do we do this ceremony? Jake asked. Soon. Very soon. But first we must prepare. Lyra Lay took his hand. Come, I will show you what we need. She led him down to a room he had never entered before. Inside were shelves filled with ancient artifacts and ceremonial items. Lyra Lee selected a small wooden box carved with intricate designs. She opened it carefully. Inside were two crystals, one clear as diamond, the other dark as midnight. These are heartstones, she explained. They are given to those who wish to bond. During the ceremony, they will glow with our combined energy, and afterward, they will remain connected no matter how far apart we are. They are beautiful. The clear one, it represents purity and new beginnings. That is you. Jake, full of hope and optimism, Lyrelay, took the dark crystal, and this represents depth and resilience. That is me, shaped by loss but still standing. Together we balance each other, light and dark, hope and wisdom. Jake held the crystal carefully. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. What else do we need? We need witnesses, but we have only Nethys, and he is witness enough. We need words of commitment, which we will speak from our hearts, and we need Lyrelay paused. We need to be absolutely certain, because once done, this cannot be reversed. I am certain. Jake met her eyes. Are you? Yes. Her voice was strong and clear. I am terrified, but I am certain. You have awakened. Something in me I thought was dead. You have given me hope again, and for that alone I would bond with you. But it is more than gratitude. I love you, Jake Morrison. I love your courage and your kindness. I love the way you see beauty in my broken world. Love that you chose to stay when you could have asked to leave. Then let us do this. Jake smiled. Let us join our hearts and face whatever comes together. They prepared through the day. Lyrelay showed Jake the traditional words he would speak. She explained the ritual and what he would feel when their energies merged. She warned him it might be overwhelming, that he would experience emotions he had never felt before. Jake listened and learned and was not afraid. As the three suns began to set, they gathered. In the main courtyard, Nethys positioned himself as witness, his massive form radiating approval and joy. Lyrelay had changed into ceremonial robes of silver and white. Jake wore simple clothes, but Lyrelay had woven flowers into his hair, a human custom she had learned from the previous visitors decades ago. They faced each other, each holding their heartstone. The air seemed to shimmer with anticipation. Lyrelay spoke first in her native tongue, ancient words that rang with power. Then she translated, "For Jake, I pledge my heart to you, my strength to you, my years to you. For as long as stars burn, I am yours." Jake replied with the words she had taught him, his voice steady, despite his racing heart. "I pledge my heart to you, my courage to you, my days to you for as long as breath remains. I am yours." They placed their heartstones together. The crystals began to glow, soft at first, then brighter and brighter. Light poured from them, silver and gold mixing together. Jake felt something open inside him, a connection forming, spreading through his chest like warmth. He could feel Lyrelay's emotions, her love and her fear and her desperate hope, her centuries of loneliness finally ending, her joy at finding someone who chose her. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying. Lyrelay gasped as she felt his emotions in return, his absolute certainty, his fierce protective love, his acceptance of her exactly as she was, his willingness to give everything for their future together. The light from the crystals grew so bright, they had to close their eyes. When it finally faded, they stood with their foreheads pressed together, both breathing hard, both crying, both smiling. "It is done," Lyrelay whispered. "We are bonded." Jake could feel her inside his heart, a presence that was both foreign and perfectly right. "I can feel you." "Yes, and I can feel you. We will always feel each other now, no matter what happens." Good. Jake pulled her close, "Because I never want to be without you." They kissed as bonded partners, as husband and wife in all but human law, as two souls, joined for eternity above them. Nethys roared his approval, the sound echoing across the valley. A declaration that something new had been born, hope in the darkness, love in the midst of war, two people from different worlds who had found each other and chosen to face the future side by side. That night, Jake and Lyrelay sat together under the stars, their hands clasped, their hearts beating in sync. "I can feel your happiness." Jake said with wonder, "It is like sunshine in my chest, and I can feel your contentment." Lyrelay smiled, like a warm fire. "This is what it means to be bonded. We share everything now, joy and sorrow, strength and weakness, victory and defeat. Then we will make sure there is more joy than sorrow, more victory than defeat. Jake kissed her hand. Starting right. Now how by being happy, by loving each other, by proving that even in the darkest times, love can still flourish. Lyra Lee leaned her head on his shoulder. I was alone for so long. I forgot what it felt like to be part of something greater. You are not alone. Anymore, never again. They sat in comfortable silence, two hearts beating as one, two souls entwined forever. 2 weeks passed after the bonding ceremony. Jake and Lyra Lee spent their days training and preparing for what would come next. The connection between them grew stronger, with each passing hour. Jake could now sense her emotions, even when she was in another room. She could feel his determination and his unwavering love. It was strange and wonderful, and neither of them would change it for anything. On the 15th day, Jake was working on salvaging parts from his crashed shuttle when Lyra Lee found him. She looked worried, her emotions bleeding through their bond with sharp edges of concern. What is wrong? Jake asked immediately. Your people, they are coming. Lyra Lee gestured toward the sky. Nethi sensed a large ship entering orbit an hour ago. They are scanning the surface. Looking for you? Jake felt his heart leap. That was faster than I expected. They must have started searching early. What do? We prepare to meet them. But Jake, there is something you must understand. Lyra Lee took his hands. Once they arrive, everything changes. They will want you to return with them. They will offer to rescue you. Are you truly ready to tell them you are staying? Yes, Jake said firmly. I am bonded to you now. My place is here by your side, fighting for Varenthia's freedom, but what if they refuse to help? What if they say this is not their war? Then I stay anyway and we find another way. Jake squeezed her hands. But I know my people, Lyra Lee. When they hear about the Dominion, about the genocide, about tyranny and oppression, they will want to help. Humans have a bad habit of standing up to bullies. I hope you are right, because if the Dominion learns that humans are coming to aid us, they will escalate. Morgana will throw everything she has at us. Then we better be ready. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Jake activated his emergency beacon properly this time. Not just a distress signal, but a full communication array. Within hours, he received a response. The holographic image flickered to life, showing a stern-faced woman in a military uniform. She had short brown hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Lieutenant Morrison. Her voice was crisp and professional. This is Captain Linda Hayes of the exploration vessel. Pathfinder, we have been searching for you. Report your status immediately. Captain Hayes. Jake felt relief wash over him. It is good to see you. I am alive and unharmed, but I have a lot to explain. The captain's expression softened slightly. We tracked your shuttle's crash site. The damage suggested you should not have survived. How did you manage it? I had helped. Jake gestured for Lyra Lee to step into view. Captain, this is Lyra Lee of House Silverwind. She saved my life. The captain's eyes widened as she took in Lyra Lee's appearance, the pointed ears, the silver hair, the clearly alien features. Are not alone in the universe. The captain breathed. Lieutenant Morrison, you have made first contact. Yes, ma'am. And there is much more you need to know. Over the next hour, Jake briefed Captain Hayes on everything. The Shadowborn Dominion, the genocide of the dragon-bonded Morgana's reign of terror. The corruption and cruelty that had consumed this world. He showed her recordings he had made. Evidence of the war crimes, proof of the atrocities. Captain Hayes listened in silence, her expression growing darker. With each revelation, when Jake finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is grave news, Lieutenant. The Dominion you describe violates multiple interstellar laws that humanity has committed to upholding. Yes, ma'am. Jake felt hope rising, which is why I am requesting that the fleet provide aid. These people are fighting for their freedom. They deserve our support. The captain nodded slowly. I will forward this information to command immediately. They will need to review it and make a decision. But, unofficially, Lieutenant, her expression softened. I believe you are right. This is exactly the kind of situation that demands intervention. Thank you, Captain. There is one more thing. Jake took a breath. I am requesting permission to remain on Varenthia A's, a liaison and advisor to the Resistance. The captain's eyebrows rose. You wish to stay. Are you certain that is wise? Yes, ma'am, more certain than I have ever been about anything. Jake felt Lyralee's hand slip into his. I have found something here worth fighting. For the captain looked between Jake and Lyralee. Her sharp eyes missing nothing. I see, she said quietly. You have bonded with her in more ways than one. Yes, ma'am. Then I cannot order you to return. The captain's voice was gentle. Self-determination is a right we all hold dear. You may remain lieutenant, but know that you will be considered on extended assignment, not abandoned, understood, captain. And thank you. We will send supplies and equipment within the week. The captain's image began to flicker, and Lieutenant B. Careful, the Dominion sounds dangerous. We will not lose you after just finding you. I will, Captain. I promise. The transmission ended. Jake turned to find Lyralee staring at him with wonder in her eyes. They are going to help. Yes, Jake pulled her into his arms. Told you they would through their bond. He felt her overwhelming relief and gratitude, hope blooming like a flower after a long winter. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. Thank you for believing in us, always. Over the following days, the situation moved quickly. Captain Hayes returned to orbit with the Pathfinder. She brought with her a small team of specialists, military advisors, medical personnel engineers, who could help repair and improve the Whisper Vale's defenses. Jake introduced them all, to Lyralee and to Nethys. The humans were appropriately amazed by the dragon. Nethys enjoyed the attention, though he pretended not to. The human analysts reviewed all of Jake's intelligence on the Dominion. They studied the recordings of the battle. They examined the shadow spear wound on Nethys. Their conclusions were unanimous. The Shadowborn Dominion posed a significant threat, not just to Varenthia, but potentially to the entire sector. Their dark magic combined with stolen technology made them dangerous. Their willingness to commit genocide made them intolerable. Humanity would intervene, but carefully. The fleet could not simply invade. That would violate other laws and potentially start a larger conflict. Instead, they would provide covert support weapons and supplies intelligence and training diplomatic pressure through back channels. It was not everything Lyralee had hoped for, but it was something. More than she had dared to dream just weeks ago. Jake watched as she worked with the human advisors, planning strategy, identifying targets, building networks of resistance across Varenthia. She was brilliant and fierce, a natural leader who had been forced into hiding for too long. Now, given the chance, she was showing what she could truly accomplish. One evening, Jake found her alone in the tower. She stood at the window overlooking the valley, her expression distant and thoughtful. What are you thinking about? Jake asked as he joined her. About how much has changed? She turned to smile at him. 3 weeks ago, I was alone, convinced I would die alone fighting a war I could never win. And now I have you. I have allies. I have hope. She laughed softly. It feels almost like a dream. It is real. Jake wrapped his arms around her from behind. All of it. And it is just the beginning. The Dominion will not give up easily. No, they will not. Lyralee leaned back against him. Morgana will see this as a declaration of war. She will come with everything she has. Then we will be ready for her. Jake kissed the top of her head. You are not the last Silverwind Rider anymore. You are the first of something new, a symbol of resistance, a leader who refused to surrender. What if I fail? What if I lead people to their deaths? Then you fail. Having tried, Jake turned her to face him. Lyralee, you have carried this burden alone for decades, but you do not have to anymore. Let others help. Let me help. Trust that together we are stronger than apart. She touched his face gently. When did you become so wise? I learned from the best. They kissed softly. The bond between them warm and steady. A constant reminder that neither was alone. Below them, Nethys rumbled his approval. The great dragon had grown fond of the humans, especially the ones who brought him treats and asked respectful questions. The situation continued to develop over the next week. More ships arrived in orbit, not warships, but support vessels. They brought medicine and food, advanced weapons and communication equipment. Most importantly, they brought hope. Word began to spread across Varenthia. The humans had come. The last Silverwind Rider had returned. The resistance was growing. Cells that had been dormant for years. Activated elves who had hidden their abilities came forward. Even some corrupted by the Dominion began to question their loyalty. Change was coming. Jake stood with Lyreley on a hill overlooking the Whisper Vale. The valley was no longer empty. Tents and temporary structures dotted the landscape. Resistance fighters trained in the courtyards. Human advisors worked alongside elven strategists. It was the beginning of something greater, an alliance between worlds, a stand against tyranny. This is what you wanted, is it not? Jake asked. Yes, Lyreley's voice was thick with emotion. This is everything I dreamed of and more. Then why do you look sad? Because I know what comes next. War, real war. Not just skirmishes and raids, but full battle. People will die. Jake, good people on both sides. Many of them, I know. Jake took her hand. But they will die fighting for freedom, for the chance to live without fear. That means something. She turned to look at him. Her violet eyes searching his face. Do you ever regret it? Staying here, bonding with me, giving up your old life? Never, Jake said firmly. Not for a single moment. This is where I belong with you, fighting for something that matters, even though you will age and I will not. Even though our time is limited. Especially because our time is limited. Jake pulled her close. Every moment with you is precious. I will not waste a single one on regrets. Lyreley kissed him then, pouring all her love and gratitude through their bond. When they parted, both were smiling through tears. Come, she said, taking his hand. We have work to do, plans to make a war to win together.